Okay, here we are again with the Mormon Dads for another episode of the Mormon Dads podcast. And I'm here with Jeff and Mark. And I'm going to assume that nobody took my gratitude idea into Family Home Evening tonight about playing Steal Your Socks and then making people smell their socks and name off 5 pieces of gratitude. Am I safe in assuming that?
You are safe.
Okay, good. Well, I was to end Family Home Evening. We were going to do one of the gratitude activities and just have our kids talk about what they were grateful for. And then our foster daughter has this really weak gag reflex, and she was drinking her milk and kind of choked on it a little bit and just threw up all over the floor and all over my cell phone, and so Family Home Evening was over.
You may want to clarify the age of your foster daughter.
She she's 14 months.
There you go.
She's,
All right.
she's quite young.
Yeah. Because if it was Mark's foster daughter, that's a bigger issue altogether.
That's true. That is true. So yeah, so that's how our Family Home Evening ended tonight, was cleaning up throw up off of the floor and hurrying to get all the towels in the wash. So,
Nice.
yep. Which was a bookend to so the beginning of the day started with a clogged toilet at our house, and then the end of the day was throw up on the floor. So everything in the middle was awesome, though. Everything in the middle was great. Those two things weren't spectacular.
You give us some hard stuff to segue off of, like intros like that, man.
There isn't really except for I didn't post either of those things on social media.
Okay.
And that's
There you go.
is social media. So there we are. Now we're into it.
Good segue.
Social media.
Well,
So we
started off.
We had a couple of ideas of directions that we could go with this, and one is, how do we teach our kids to use social media appropriately? What are the pros and cons of social media? And then the other idea that we had to talk about social media is just Facebook fatigue or social media fatigue, when there's something that major that happens, which this week it was the policy change that the church released, and all of a sudden Facebook and Twitter, those are the two that I frequent the most, it was like a bomb went off, and friends of mine on both sides had super passionate arguments for each side of why the announcement was good or why it was the worst thing ever. And I just really got tired. Like, I was like, oh, I can't see one more thing about the policy on the policy change. And so you would think that I would have then not got on social media after that for a little while, but that was the case. I persevered through all of my frustration to find some funny text messages or whatever that I got clickbaited into looking at. So, anyways, there you go. Take that and run with it, you guys.
Boy, Mark, I'll give you the baton. I don't know how you clean that up.
Well, to be quite honest, having prepped for the Ragnar race last week and then actually doing the race down in Las Vegas, I haven't even read the original article or policy change or anything. I have seen a lot of the headlines and a couple of people's opinions on it, but one of you guys kind of sum up what the rule is? I don't know if you're willing to go out and do that, but
yeah, the policy change is that if you are in a gay marriage, basically, then that is considered apostate, and the church discipline will be handled as such, that that's considered apostasy. And along with that, and this is what got people upset, was that children who are living in a household where the parents are gay and living in a gay relationship, that those children won't be allowed to have a name and a blessing done, be baptized until they're 18 years old, and then they'll have to have an interview with an apostle. And I think that's what it says, is that they'll have to have an interview with an apostle and basically declare that they know that gay marriage is not part of the gospel plan, and it's not part of an approved behavior of the church. And so there's been, different takes on that whole thing, but that's what the policy is basically. Did I miss anything, Jeff, that you were?
No, that sounds about right. I didn't know about the interview thing. I couldn't tell you if that was exactly the case, but yeah, the rest I would say you summed up nicely.
It either said that, or, and I might be projecting what I know of a friend of mine who grew up in a polygamous family, and he was in his 20s when he decided to get baptized, and he had to be interviewed by an apostle in order to have his baptism approved.
Oh.
You brought up my first question, Matt, because I was going to ask, does it just talk about gay and lesbian couples, or does it talk about any apostate family situation?
Well, that's a great question, because this it parallels policy that's been in the church for years. The polygamous family policy has been for generations part of the policy of the church, and then also Muslim families, just because of the my understanding is because of the delicate nature of what it would mean to someone in a Muslim family to be baptized or convert to the gospel, that's another situation that needs special approval.
Right.
To be able to.
Have you heard one way or the other, what if both parents were excommunicated from the church?
What do you mean?
Like, is it a similar situation for a kid who lives in the family where the parents were excommunicated for things they have done?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So right. I think that's part of the challenge in reconciling the issue for a lot of people is that there are some questions, and I think people who have a bone to pick with the church and want to take shots at the church, I think that they can interpret the policy as being discriminatory or targeting children or trying to punish gay people because gay marriage was made legal in the United States, and so some people feel like this is a backlash from the church to say, well, we'll show you. Right. And then there's the other side that talks about this really is something to protect children and protect those families that, even though they don't adhere to what the church's doctrine is about marriage, that the church wants to provide a stability for children, and so they won't be proselyting to those children, and they won't be they're welcome to come to church, they're welcome to take part in the activities and stuff like that, but the church doesn't want to put those children in a position where they are in a family situation that directly conflicts with the teachings of the church before they're at an age of maturity.
And I agree with the fact, even when I was a missionary, a lot of missionaries are gung-ho about getting people baptized, and they say, you got to hit the window where they're feeling the Spirit before something happens to take that away. But I was a firm advocate for not baptizing someone unless you were 100% sure that they were ready to be a full-fledged member of the church. I saw 9 people get baptized when I was in Italy, and to my knowledge, none of them go to church anymore. And you could argue that too, whether it's good to have the church in your life and then maybe fall away from it, or whether it was better to not know it at all. But kids have hard enough lives to have to decide: do I go with my parents, or maybe, maybe we don't want to get into the argument if they're making wrong choices or not, but I go with the way my parents are going, or do I go with the way the church is going? And that's a huge decision for an immature, unexperienced kid to try to have to make.
Well, and that was the whole point. I think the church didn't want to put kids in that position.
Right.
That's way too difficult a position to put a kid from 8 to 18 in, when they need to have a cohesive family unit, and they don't need to feel like they have to. Anyway, that was the point of it, was to not put kids in that position.
Right.
Yeah.
I would argue that for anybody joining the church, not just a kid in a family like that, but if you're not willing to pay 10% of your tithing and give a fast offering and fast every week and do your home teaching and read your scripture
every week.
every week.
Hold the phone.
Let's not get carried away, Mark. Some of us have to find ways to enjoy the once a month fast.
I thought it was Christmas and Easter. Isn't that when you do it?
But I hear what you're saying, and I think that and I'll illustrate this with a story. But the point that I'm going to try to make is that we may sometimes take the ordinances and the covenants for granted, that it's just something that we do instead of really thinking about the covenants that we're making. And I was in a bishopric, and we were talking about a youth who was 18, who was falling away from the church, and he struggled to come to church. He professed to be atheist this week, but then didn't the next week, and then was atheist again, and so we were talking about it, and we were looking for a secretary in the elders quorum, and I'm like, well, what if we called him to be the secretary in the elders quorum and gave him some responsibility? And the ward clerk just said, I would worry about that he's not ready to receive the priesthood. And I don't think I even said anything the whole rest of the meeting, because I just was dumbfounded that I had taken that responsibility of receiving the priesthood that lightly. That
Right.
to just say, oh yeah, well, let's add this more responsibility on this 18-year-old kid who's trying to make these decisions, instead of really thinking, is this someone who's ready to uphold the covenants and the responsibility that receiving the Melchizedek priesthood is. And so, and I think that sometimes we take for granted that baptism really is making covenants. And as far as covenants go, they're, maybe on the I don't want to say less serious, but I think as you kind of progress through the ordinances, the covenants become more serious if you don't live up to those covenants. Is that fair to say? And so to have children get baptized into a situation that might not support the keeping of those covenants and the teaching of the gospel, and that paradigm, I think, in my opinion, I've come down on that side, that I feel like it's a good thing for children, and a good thing for kids to not have to make those kind of decisions until they're old enough
Okay. You gonna pull that back to social media now?
So, yeah, so social media. I guess my frustration with the social media portion was, okay, here it is. Here's my frustration with social media and why I don't generally post my responses to major events and stuff like that that are controversial, is because I think that it is almost impossible to really get to the root cause and really understand where another person's coming from in just a couple of sentences or 140 characters if you're on Twitter doing a tweet. And it's so much more difficult to convey the emotion that a conversation would have. Because if I'm going to have a conversation with someone about something that's controversial, I'm looking to understand, and I'm seeking to understand what their position is, and I'm seeking to understand why they think the way that they do. And the overwhelming, at least my sense, and I'm only speaking for myself, but my sense on social media is that it's, rather than being about understanding the other side and really trying to come to a consensus is the wrong word, because I don't think this is something that you come to a consensus on and everybody's like, oh yeah, this is what we all agree on. But there's such strong emotion and such strong opinions, and everyone's trying to get their side heard, that I think that if I would rather just have a conversation with somebody about it.
So it's interesting what you just said, because it's almost verbatim to something I wrote down a couple minutes ago. And it's been my position on social media for some time. And I actually think I read something similar a while ago. But one of the things that I find in my work, I work for the government, is that you almost can't educate people via social media, because what I find is people don't use social media to have honest debate or to learn both sides of a story. They only use social media to find other people that support their position. And there's such a wide net to cast. If you put your opinion out there as either correct or incorrect as it might be, you will find a mass of people that support your position. And that reaffirms your belief, as incorrect or correct as it might be. And that's why we put our postings, and that's why we put whether it's our political or religious leanings on Facebook. We simply do it to gather support, but we don't do it to gather information or context. That's what bugs me about social media.
Hear, hear. I think social media, Facebook to me, should just be strictly entertainment.
Just memes and links to funny pictures.
Yep. Or funny things that your kids do that are really fun.
Or text messages that dads send that are super stupid but hilarious.
Yep. And then clickbaited into that thing where you have to scroll through the ads to find the next button.
Yeah, that's true. I hate
those things. Those should be illegal. How's that for putting my political leanings out there?
Yeah, well, you found some people that support you.
I didn't hear what you said. What was that?
I said, yeah, you found some people that support you. I'm not here to debate you. I support you. The other thing that I found with Facebook is, like, even with this church thing, for you and me and Mark, it seemed like Facebook blew up with this whole topic. But it didn't. Just our little corner of Facebook blew up. And one of the things about Facebook that's interesting, and I think why it's super, I don't want to use dangerous, but we have to be so aware of it for our kids, is it seems like Facebook takes your world and my world and then makes it look like the whole world. So maybe if you're a teenager and something happens at school or there's a controversy between friends, all your feeds, all your messages, the algorithms push them all to the top. it all makes it look like all of Facebook is debating your issue, but they're
See,
not.
I can see that because I'm in the situation where at least half of my Facebook is all in New Jersey and doesn't
Yeah.
know anything about the church and probably still hasn't even heard of the fact that this change in policy ever happened. And so mine was kind of sporadic, enough that I could tell something happened because a lot of people were commenting on it, but it wasn't everybody for me because half my people aren't related to the church at all.
Yeah. So that's this amazing phenomenon of social media to me, and I think that's why teenagers and kids that use it find it especially powerful, because it amplifies our little world. And we see it on the internet and think the whole world can see this, the whole world must care, but they don't.
Right.
But we think they do. And if you're 15 or 14 or 17, man, you want the whole world to care, or you don't want anyone to know, but it's always one of the extremes. And so Facebook can really amplify that and make things really tricky to navigate.
That's an interesting perspective that I hadn't thought of that deeply and that clearly. I thought about the idea that, man, most of the world doesn't even hit the radar.
Right.
But we're inundated. But I hadn't thought about it in that teenager perspective and just the general use of social media and how, like, if we had an issue, we went home and hung out with our families or whatever, and by and large it was over the next day when you went to school. But now Facebook just compounds it and compounds it.
And remember, the algorithms of Facebook, if you go on your feed right now, you're only going to see the things that are either reposted or that have comments or everything that's popular between you and your friends. But I could post 100 things, Matt, and because no one ever looks at my Facebook page, you'll never see it. Because the algorithm buries it behind everything else that's had more traction. So you take things like church announcements, and in our little world where half of our friends on Facebook are Mormon, and they reposted something that a friend reposted and so on, those things are always at the top of our feed. And so we think that's the big news because that's what it's trying to show us. And I think we have to put all that in context.
That was the conversation killer right there.
Yes. Sorry, boys. I didn't know it was like conversation kryptonite, but.
So let's talk more though about kids and social media because my son's not on social media yet at 12 years old. What about your kids, Jeff?
No. So they have Gmail accounts, and so they email back and forth if they've got some friends. And then my daughter and all of her friends use a program called Text Plus. I don't know it, but it's just a free texting and calling program between anyone who downloads it. They go through that Snapchat phase, which as a dad, and I know this makes me sound old, I'm not a fan of. I don't like that because the messages all disappear. And but no, it's very mild. They've got it on. My daughter has something on her iPod that her and her friends can go back and forth. But as far as Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts, she uses Instagram. But that's mostly for like projects and stuff she's doing. There's not a big social component on Instagram for her. You know, there's not social interaction. It's just, oh, there's something my aunt so and so did. Or Pinterest. I mean,
Gotcha.
I'm gonna pin that and pin that and pin that. So. But not from the social perspective. We're kind of shying away from that for a little while still.
Okay, and she's 14, right?
13.
13. So when my son's 12, and we talked about letting him have a Facebook account, but we haven't, and he hasn't asked, like he hasn't really been interested in wanting one. I think he just walks over to his friend's house like the good old days.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and he has a cell phone that is flip phone that that is for him to take so we can get a hold of him when he's gone, or when we're gone we can get a hold of him, but no social media. But that's something that is coming, and I think about how me and my wife model how we use social media, which probably isn't ideal because it's so easy on your phone to just check it real quick. But what about you, Mark? Your foster girls probably have Facebook accounts, yeah?
They do. Here's one right here.
Is that a specific intention?
You can't talk about it right now because his daughter's behind him.
I can't give all the dirt in the room. No.
We had M&Ms on the floor when I had a girlfriend when I was 12, and if our parents were in the room, then we would just say, "There's M&Ms on the floor," and then we'd be careful of what we said.
Nice. You guys have a little code going, huh?
We did have a little code. Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have all their accounts and stuff. The most we do is we just periodically check theirs on their, because they usually do it on their phone. So we just periodically take their phone and kind of run through their messages and stuff. So that hasn't been a problem, unless they're hiding it from me, which is totally possible. But
oh, bring her in. She's just behind
then
me.
my little girl's too little for that stuff.
Me and Jeff can play good cop, bad cop. We'll do an interrogation.
Okay.
So I guess at least me and Jeff don't really have the experience of teaching kids about social media or working with kids, with our kids anyways, with social media and stuff like that.
Well, I guess the only real teaching that I could say I've done is if I saw something that I thought, could be taken the wrong way or could lead to something wrong, or, I'd point that out and have a conversation with them. But, we had the experience where they were already 16, 17 years old when they moved in. And so, you can kind of give your opinion. If it's something me and my wife felt strongly about, we would put a stop to it if there was something going the wrong way. But neither of them, from what I can tell, have crossed any lines that me and my wife would have drawn. So it hasn't been too bad of an issue, luckily.
So I guess it could be something that listeners with comments or experience could give us some advice on about how to prepare your kids for using social media. But Jeff, you had something that you wanted to say.
Well, I think Mark brings up a good point that, our context, our tone for this whole discussion has been, how we're frustrated with social media or some of its downsides. But let's be honest, it can be a fantastic tool, and our kids can benefit from it greatly. Truth be told, Matt, if we didn't use Facebook, you and I would have never caught up after our missions years later.
Yeah, for sure.
That's where we all of a sudden started messaging back and forth, and then next thing you know, we talk once a week on video chat, right? So it has that tremendous potential, and we know that the church has adopted that. They're using it for missionary work, and they use social media for so many things to further the work. And it's been an awesome tool from everything I hear. So I think Mark's right. We should maybe when we're talking to our kids about it, and maybe when we're checking on our kids' use, we should do it with a little more optimism. And like Mark said, he hasn't seen anything that his daughters have crossed the line. Awesome. So they're using it correctly. Now, correctly and how much time and all that stuff, that's relative to every family. But maybe when we approach these things with our kids, we try and do it very positively and explain all the neat things you can do with it, and then just help them understand there's boundaries, whether it's a time boundary, whether it's a moral content boundary, all those kind of things.
Go ahead, Mark. You mentioned the time. We did have to have a discussion. Our one daughter got her phone taken away for a while, and she finally got it back, and we took her out to Red Robin for her birthday dinner, and she kept texting on the phone. So we had a big discussion on manners and when it's polite or impolite to pull your phone out at the table, and it's a rule not to do it at home, but I guess
I'm the worst.
For a while, and because we weren't at our own kitchen table, she was pushing it, and then So we did have those type of discussions as far as teaching goes. But
Matt, you were saying you're the worst. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I've got the electronic tether. Just that's not what I'm working on in my life right now, though. I'm working on eating more healthy, so I'm not going to feel guilty about it because
the more time you're on your phone is the less time you have to eat, right?
Well, and I have to put my calories in my phone.
You're tracking your calories on your phone?
What?
You're tracking calories on your phone?
Yeah. Does that make you lose respect for me?
Well, and already tonight I learned that Mark fasts once a week, and you listen to your phone. You look at your phone during meals. So yeah, frankly.
Okay. So Mark's moving up in your world, and I'm.
Oh yeah.
No,
There has been a leapfrog move this podcast, man.
So I made this. This will even make you lose more respect for me. So I might as well just go all the way.
Yeah.
I ended up realizing that with my gluttonous desires that I feel a lot, actually, that I don't have self-control when it comes to eating food. And I can't just be like, yeah, I'm just, like, I can't. I just lose control. So what I did was I got a couple of kids in my Sunday school class, and I said, here is my login and password to my calorie program. So I'll be counting calories, and you guys can watch what I'm eating. And if I go over, or if I eat something that I'm not supposed to, I'll pay each of you $50.
Whoa!
And so I've got $100 on the line that I do it and that I stick to it. I wanted to do $250 and write a check to like the atheist community of Utah or something like that, and then give the check to somebody and say, if I go over or if I mess up, then you send this check to this organization that I would never, or PETA, something that I would never donate to. And but Michelle was she was a little bit like 250. She didn't believe that I could. She doesn't have the faith in me to withstand that temptation at a $250 level. She felt a little better about $100, so that's what she agreed.
But here's the problem, Matt.
Yeah.
We've already established that you are morally inferior. And so why wouldn't you just lie to these kids and not post what you eat and save your $100? See, that's the problem with your little game. You've already told me you're weak in so many areas.
Well, I guess that will be a test of my integrity, won't it?
I guess so.
So I only have 300 calories left for today, and I'm going to eat a bowl of cereal before I go to bed. So I'll be
9:30, man. Just turn in.
I can't sleep if on an empty stomach. I'll be tossing and turning and being like, I'm so hungry.
Well, I'm bringing this back to social media.
Okay.
If you start posting everything you eat with associated calories, I'm unfriending you, and that'll be that. So
that would be, I would deserve it.
Because it goes to that thing that, and you and I both know this, all three of us have seen this. I have some good friends. I think they're awesome people, but I know every piece of minutia of their life, and I don't want to. I desperately don't want to know so much about them, and yet I'm privy to everything. And so I wish, like crazy, they would show some discretion and not post everything.
And you want them to post some funny stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, if they got some videos about cats that are hilarious or something, sure, but otherwise, no. I don't want to know so much.
It is not a place to air your dirty laundry or to talk about the minutia of your life. But if you've got something funny to post or something that other people would relate with, then I think that's what Facebook is for.
Really?
Yeah.
You're just
Pure
it's funny.
value, and to find out that people died.
As a funny thing?
No, not as a funny thing.
Okay.
No, I'm going in the other direction. But there's been a couple of people and a couple of real tragedies that of people that I've known that have passed away that I wouldn't have known if it hadn't have been for Facebook. So yeah.
The alternative to that is I've had an instance where everybody thought someone died and she hadn't really died. Somebody just posted it and everybody believed it.
That's rough, man.
Yeah.
So tell me this, because I'm going to keep trying to salvage this podcast. You guys are doing it. Do any of you have examples, or have you seen where you can keep in touch with actual family members, or that your kids can have a relationship with family members that they otherwise couldn't because of social media?
Yeah, my brother, who's in Pennsylvania, like that's how we keep in touch, is through social media.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Mark?
Yeah, my kids aren't old enough. We don't really do anything on social media with them. But, as far as some of my aunts and uncles and cousins, like I'd see them once a year when I went home to visit. Except, there's things that get posted on Facebook that we all comment on. And I look at things a lot, and I hardly ever write anything. But if my family's talking about something, I'll jump in and be able to talk with them where I otherwise wouldn't, because we don't ever call each other or email each other, and so Facebook could be the only way.
And my kids know, like, their older cousins that are adults, that because my wife will be chatting with them or whatever, and my kids want to get on and chat with them and do poop emojis and stuff like that to them, but they do, and I have a cousin, and when we were in San Diego a couple weeks ago, we hadn't seen each other in 7 years or whatever it was, and to be able to have that framework of, oh, this is what's been going on in your life, because I've been able to see what's happening on social media, I think that it's amazing, and I think that's way awesome.
Yeah. So that's one of those good things I see too, where I would encourage my kids when they get involved with social media to develop those kind of relationships. I got cousins they came up to visit this year, but in Arizona, and my 11-year-old son and their 12-year-old son, I message back and forth now all the time. They use either their mom's phones, they don't have their own, so they message back and forth, and those kind of things I think are great. And you think about when Grandma and Grandpa serve missions, or my parents just finished a mission, and to be frank, and this probably sounds terrible, we talk to them more via Skype on their mission than I do, and they live 50 minutes away from me right now. And but we talked every week while they were gone, and the kids got to visit with them and talk to them, and so that was a great thing. And I think those are some of the really positive things of social media if we point out the positive aspects of it.
I agree.
Once again, I just kill this thing.
Yeah, you're doing this like, I'm going to salvage this podcast and make a point, and we're all like...
You make a good point, so there's not much to add to it.
I'm just assuming you're pondering, and that makes me feel a little better about it.
There's no... But no, there's not a time where I look at myself and say, all right, I am done with social media. I'm off. Because it's just become part of my life. It's become part of how I keep in touch with friends and family, but also kids that I'm in kind of a mentor relationship with. Also, to be able to still have influence and still have the ability for that kid who has maybe we haven't talked for a long time, but they're like, hey, I have a question for you. Bam, here it is, and they know that they can reach out to me, and so social media has been a platform for that mentorship aspect also, for me to be able to help like I'm not a counselor, but to help counsel kids and to help them think through stuff that they're going through.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my dad did hit that limit about a month ago. He was so tired of people posting the same stuff over and over again, and just negative things. And it was at the time where everybody was talking about gay marriage and kind of worldwide topics that blew up Facebook, like LDS one that we started talking about tonight. And then he realized that he was spending a lot of time on it as well, where he could have been getting other stuff done. So he just closed his account, doesn't use it anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be the first
Matt,
thing you woke up in the morning and the last thing you do before you go to bed, and just dropped it.
Yeah. But Matt, you touched on something I think is important, and I think it's important our kids understand this too. Like over this last week, I stopped following some people who I normally keep close tabs with, but I'm just tired of their stuff. I'm just tired of the negativity, and I'm tired of the useless banter they put on there. And I got thinking about it. As much as I got frustrated all the time, I got thinking, wait a minute, I control this. I can follow or not follow whoever I want. And it's just simply me having the discipline to say, that's it. As much as I'm friends with that person, as much as I care for that person, I'm done. I'm done with them on social media because they do nothing for me. They don't build me up. They make me feel negative, and I just had to dump some people. And it's not that I wouldn't love to go to dinner with them, or it's not that I wouldn't love to still have a relationship with them, but not on social media. And I think it's important we remember that we control 100% of the content there. I mean, aside from the stupid ads. But we control 100% of the content, and our kids can control 100% of that content. And anything that's going on around us that we aren't watching anymore, we just have to get over it. We can't feel like we're missing out on all this stuff if it was all just negative and brought us down. You got to bail out.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I've unfollowed or blocked people that were super negative. There's still some people, like I said, that I keep that avenue open because I wonder if there's an opportunity for them to reach out later on.
Yeah.
But they're not people who, even though they like their views on lots of issues are way opposite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Polar opposites, really. But we have a relationship where we respect each other's opinion and care about each other, and what they post isn't negative, so it's kind of a different situation. But I guess I just don't want to. I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though I get frustrated with being inundated with like on the same topic where it just gets beat to death, I appreciate diverse opinions. I do appreciate diverse opinions and want to understand both sides, and not, for me personally, to not censor one side just because and say, you don't agree with me, so you're out of here. And I'm not saying that that's why you decided to block those people. Like, I get that it was just negativity and negativity and negativity. So basically, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I have a question I want to pose, and we probably won't have time to get into a discussion on it. But Jeff was talking about picking who you're going to keep in contact with, and thinking about my dad, thinking about how much time he was on it, and making a decision that he wanted to devote that time to other things. Do you think we spread ourselves thin with the relationships we keep and maintain on Facebook with time that we could dedicate to our families?
Yeah. That's a great question. My answer is yes.
Yeah, I think you certainly can. Of course, I think we can all justify our time one way or another, but yes, I think the short answer, I agree, is you can get so involved in the crisis of the 385 friends around you that you
Right.
could be completely oblivious to some right in your home, and that's a shame if that's the case.
So maybe another topic would be, how do we guard against that? Like, what are appropriate cell phone uh, strategies
Okay,
to enhance family relationships?
let's not open up that Pandora's box now.
Let's not. We're out of time tonight. We're up against our limits. So, does anybody have any parting ideas, or does anybody want to summarize or attempt to summarize?
Well, I could never go quiet after, so that might work fine.
That would make an appropriate ending, though.
You should be the one maybe you should be the one that ends the podcast every week. And then instead of me saying, well, we really don't know what to say to end the podcast, then it will be, you make a great point, and then we're just done.
The problem is, I think I'm out of great points. I mean, I made fun of you a lot. No, we just, all right, let me try and sum it. Here we go. I'll dig deep. I think we just realize that social media can be a good thing. Obviously, there's boundaries of our time and our resources. We need to watch how our kids use it. We need to be positive about it. It can do a lot of great things, and we can approach it positively. And we need to make sure that we don't interpret what's happening in our little Facebook world as what's happening in the whole world. Keep everything in context. It's a great tool. The church has endorsed it. We know that it can be great for our families and for spreading the gospel, so use it appropriately.
Hang on, there was a whole middle part where you turned into a robot there.
Oh, it was good. I could hear it.
You could hear it?
Good, Jeff.
Too bad.
I couldn't hear it, and I don't think our listeners will be able to hear it either, but maybe
I was just
they'll
about to say
hear it.
amen and be done.
Well, then they can listen to the other 50 minutes, and so I don't have to hear just a summary.
All right, that sounds good. And we're done for tonight, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.